Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are learning how to crochet this iris market bag. I'm super excited to share this one with you. The iris stitch is a beautiful beginner level stitch that really just uses double crochet and chain. So if you know how to double crochet and you can chain, you can go ahead and make this market bag. What you're going to need today is an H or 5mm hook. You're going to need a yarn needle. You're going to need 3 different stitch markers. I have 2 in one color and I'll explain that later, and 1 in another. You can go ahead and have 3 in all the same color, or you can do as I did. Either way works. You're going to need about 1.5 skeins of I Love This Cotton yarn from Hobby Lobby, and you're going to need one button about 1 inch to 1.5 inches depending on your preference. So go ahead and grab your supplies. I just want to let you know also I have this pattern is available in my Etsy shop, the PDF printable pattern. Also, you can go ahead and if you are not a crocheter, you can order one of these bags from my Etsy shop as well. But if you are a crocheter and you are ready to get going, let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, to get started, we are going to make a slip knot. Put it on your hook and you're going to chain 2. And then what you're going to do is we're going to actually foundation double crochet for a total of 60. And in the last stitch, we are going to join it. So I'll show you how to foundation double crochet first. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the first chain, yarn over again. So we should have 3 loops on the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 1 loop. That's our base chain. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's our first foundation double crochet. We're going to do 59 more, so there'll be a total of 60. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple more times. So yarn over, put it into the base chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1, create your base chain, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And you are just going to repeat that same stitch until you have 59. And I'm going to meet you back here at 59 so I can show you how to join the first stitch to the very last stitch to make a round. So go ahead and make sure you have 59 stitches, foundation double crochet stitches, and I will meet you back here very shortly. Alright guys, so I have 59 stitches here, and remember this is going to be, we are going to create a tube. So what we're going to do is we're going to join using the last foundation double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the base chain, just like normal, yarn over again, pull up a loop, and then what we're going to do is instead of finishing, we are going to bring around the first stitch. So you'll notice you don't want it twisted, and you're going to go in through the front. So you're going to use the first base chain, you're going to insert your hook in there, you're then going to yarn over, pull through, and you're going to pull through the first loop. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So now we've joined the bottom, now we can join the top with a slip stitch. Just like that. So now that's our first round, it's complete. Now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 2, and our next 2 rows will both be just plain double crochets. So that chain 2 will count as the first double crochet of the round, and then we're just going to double crochet in each stitch all the way around, and this will be the base of the bag. So this will give us a good solid foundation, so when you put things in it, it won't stretch quite as much as the other parts. So go ahead and double crochet all the way around. and you should have 60 double crochets at the end, and then I will show you how we're going to join and how we're going to continue here in just a moment. All right, once you have completed all 60 double crochets, you're going to then join with a slip stitch to your chain 2, just like that, and you're going to chain 2 again, and then you're just going to repeat that same row, double crocheting in every stitch around. And this will be the final double crochet row before we start the iris stitch. So make sure that you have all 60 stitches. Really, that stitch count is important because it will be what allows us to create the iris stitch in the round. So make sure your stitch count is correct before we get going. And I'll see you back here in a second. Alrighty, to end our last double crochet row, we are going to again slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 from the very beginning. And now we are going to start our iris stitch rows. So this is a really fun part, but this start and the end you need to pay attention to just a little bit. So this chain 2 is going to be the base of our first iris stitch, and kind of the best way that I have found to make sure that the seam stays put is actually to chain 2, double crochet into that chain 2. So you'll have 2 stitches in the chain 2 in the same stitch, and then we're going to skip 3, and at the end of the row we will finish this iris. If you try to have the chain 2 like on the end or something, it just does not seem to, the seam is very visible, and I haven't found another way that really makes it work out as well. So right now we have a chain 2 and we have a double crochet all in the first stitch, and now we're going to skip 3, so 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th stitch we're going to double crochet twice. So we have 1, 2, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to double crochet twice more into that same stitch. If you've never used the iris stitch before, then I highly recommend that you check out my tutorial on it over on my channel. I'll even link it here, so that way you can check it out. But you'll end up just doing this on a repeat. So you'll skip 3, 2 double crochets in the next stitch. You'll chain 1, do 2 more in the same stitch, and you're going to repeat that all the way around. So we'll skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one, double crochet twice, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. So skip 3, double crochet twice in the 4th stitch, chain 1, double crochet twice. So 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be slightly different than how we work the next couple of stitches, the next couple of rows, because we will already have our first iris stitch row. So this one is different than the next 2. So go ahead and finish your iris stitch row, and I will see you back here in a minute. Okay, so to finish up our first iris stitch row, you'll notice we are back here at the beginning. We're going to skip the 3, and we're going to go ahead and crochet back into that chain 2 from the beginning. Now we're going to double crochet twice into that chain 2. We're building the other side of the iris stitch. And then we're going to chain 1 just like normal, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 from the beginning of this round. We're going to chain 2 now, and we're going to start our second row. So then we're going to double crochet into that chain 1 space, and we're going to leave it. Now we're going to move on to our next iris stitch, And now we're going to double crochet twice, chain 1, 2 more double crochets into that chain 1 space instead of into a stitch. So it'll kind of open up these spaces, which will make it look really, really pretty. And if you've ever seen an iris flower, it looks very, very similar. So you're going to double crochet twice into the top of that at previous row's iris. So 1, 2, into that chain 1. You're going to chain 1 again. You're going to double crochet twice. And there you go. You have your very first iris for your second row. And you'll see kind of how it opens it up a little bit. It's really pretty. Now you're just going to repeat that in every chain 1 from the iris from the previous row. So we'll do it again. We're going to do 2 double crochets, excuse me. 1 and 2. We're going to chain 1, then we're going to double crochet twice again. 1 and 2. So that is what we're going to repeat all the way around. I will show you how to finish up that first iris here at the end of the round, and I'll meet you back here in just a second. We are at the end of our second row of iris stitches. So what we're going to do, we're going to double crochet twice in that chain 1. And just like when we finished the previous row, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch into the chain 2 from the beginning of the round. So you'll see as we go, you're going to see that beautiful iris stitch just come out more and more. So we're going to do one more round of the iris stitch, and this one's going to be nice because it'll be exactly like the previous round. So we're going to chain 2, you're going to double crochet into that chain 1 space, and you're going to continue to do the iris stitch just like before in every chain 1 space. So 2 double crochets, a chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. And that is going to be what you're going to repeat all the way around just like before. And I will go ahead and see you here at the end to show you how to continue. Okay, to finish the third row of iris stitches, we're going to double crochet in that last chain 1 space. We're going to double crochet again. We're going to chain 1, and you're going to slip stitch into the beginning chain 2 of the round. And this is what it should look like. You'll have 3 rows of iris stitches and 3 double crochet rows right now. So you should have 6 rows complete. And what we're going to do is we are going to chain 2. And we're going to double crochet in each stitch around. Now, before we start, I want you to understand that these chain 1 stitches do not count as a stitch. So do not double crochet into the chain 1 spaces. You're going to just skip over them. Otherwise, it'll throw off your stitch count by a lot, because those chain 1s are just really placement for the iris stitch. They don't count as a stitch themselves. So, for example, this chain 2 will count as the double crochet from that chain 2. You're going to double crochet in the next double crochet stitch. You're going to double crochet in the next 2 double crochet stitches. You're going to skip that chain 1, and you're going to double crochet in the other 2 double crochet stitches on the other side. And that is how you're going to complete this round. So you're just going to be skipping the chain 1s all the way around, but you'll be double crocheting in every other stitch. So chain 1, we're going to skip it, we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. This will make sure that you have the same stitch count of 60 as we continue to build the bag all the way up. You won't get that like slightly increasing in size. This way it'll also make sure that the integrity of the bag holds firm as you build, because we'll be adding more of these iris stitch rows, which are beautiful, but you want to make sure that they also have some integrity and they'll retain their shape. So these double crochet rows, every fourth row will actually help it retain its shape. So go ahead and double crochet around, remembering to skip the chain one, and we will be back here in just a moment. All right, to go ahead and end this double crochet row, remember to skip that chain one and slip stitch into the chain two from the beginning. And that is the first of a series of iris stitch stripes that we're going to make. So the next stitch that we're going to repeat is going to be this fourth row that we started the iris stitch stripe with. So I'll go ahead and show you again, and we're going to repeat all of these rows. The rows 4 through 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 through 7 we're going to repeat several times. So I'll just go ahead and remind you at every row what we're doing, just to make sure you've got it and to give you a little update, but I'm not going to fully explain every single row again. Just to give you a reminder, for this one we're going to chain 2. We're going to double crochet into the top of that chain 2 again. So we have 2 stitches. Remember, that one is different from how we form these others. Now we're going to skip through. We got 1, 2, 3, and in this fourth one we are going to double crochet twice. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to double crochet twice again. So we skipped 3 and we completed an iris stitch. That's what we're going to do all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, iris stitch in the fourth stitch. So go ahead and complete your next row, and I will see you back here in a moment. Just a reminder, when you're finishing up this row, skip 3, double crochet twice more into that chain 2. Chain 1 and slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 from the beginning of your round. And you're going to go ahead and chain 2, double crochet into that same chain 1 that you just made from the previous row, and then you're going to go ahead and complete an iris stitch in every chain 1. So double crochet twice, chain 1 and double crochet twice. So go ahead and complete your iris stitches in every chain 1 all the way around. Here's a little update of what it should look like right now. We should have 1 completed stripe, and you're working on your second iris stitch stripe. Alright, finishing up this second row of irises for our second stripe with 2 double crochets into that last chain space, chain 1 and slip stitch into the top of the chain 2. Now we're just going to repeat this one more time. So chain 2, double crochet into that chain space, and we're going to create those irises in those chain 1 spaces all the way around again. And then we'll do our double crochet row right after that. So go ahead and complete your irises, and I will be back here at the end just to remind you what we're going to do for the next row. To finish up our last iris again, we're going to double crochet twice into the final chain 1 space, chain 1 and slip stitch into that chain 2 again. And now this is what it should look like at this point. we should have 2 iris stitch stripes. And then we are going to finish up this stripe. We are going to do a double crochet row again. Now remember, we are going to skip the chain 1 spaces just to make sure our stitch count remains at 60. We do not want to double crochet into those chain 1 spaces because that'll alter our stitch count. So we're going to chain 2. Remember that counts as the first double crochet. Then we're going to double crochet into the top of the very next stitch, double crochet into the next 2 stitches, skip the chain 1, and double crochet into the next 2 stitches of that iris stitch. So just remember to skip every chain 1 as you go around. Your stitch count should remain at 60, and when you've come around, I'll show you again. We're going to slip stitch to close, and then we're just going to repeat those exact same steps. We are going to have 2 more of those iris stitch stripes. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my double crochet row, and I'll finish my 2 stripes, and I will show you how we're going to wrap up this bag in just a moment. This is what it looks like when you have all 4 stripes complete. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 iris stitch stripes completed now. So our tube is complete. We are now going to work on the brim of the bag. So to kind of separate the body from the brim, we're going to go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to complete 1 more double crochet round just to reinforce this edge before we really fasten off and really wrap up the top. So chain 2, and you're just going to double crochet in each stitch around, just like you did for the previous row. Alright, as you finish that last double crochet row, you're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 to join. So this is what it'll look like. And now we are going to complete the edging with a slip stitch. Now this will kind of make the brim stand out a little bit more, and I like how it really finishes up the bag nicely. So you're going to chain 1, and then you're also going to slip stitch into the chain 2. Now the chain 2, it's kind of hard to do the back loop only, but what you're going to be doing all the way across is slip stitching into the back loop only for every stitch around. Now for this first stitch, we are also, while we're slip stitching, we're going to be marking where our handles, the button loop, and the button are going to go. So for this first stitch, we're going to take a stitch marker, and we're going to mark that seam stitch because we want it to be in the center of one of the handles. We want this seam, even though it's harder to tell that it's even there, we've hidden it pretty well, you still want it on the side so it's even less noticeable. So we are going to slip stitch 15, and then we are going to create our button loop. So we have 1, 2, back loop only, remember, slip stitch 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now we are going to chain 5 to 7 depending on the size of your button that you're using. I'm going to do a chain of 7 just to make sure everything fits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Also, if you do 7, it gives yourself a little bit of leeway, gives it just enough room so if you have like a full bag, it doesn't stretch it out. And then you're going to slip stitch back into the back loop only again of that same stitch. So you'll have a little button loop. Now what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch in the back loop only again for another 15. So I'm going to be right back with you, and you're going to do slip stitch only, back loop only, and I'll be back with you once you've got another 15. Alright, after you've slip stitched in the back loop only for another 15, you're going to place another stitch marker in that 15th stitch. This will be for the other side of the bag. Now we're going to slip stitch another 15 in the back loop only. So 14 and 15. And now this is where I'm going to use a different color stitch marker just to help me out. You could totally use the same color or whatever you have on you. But I'm going to mark this 15th stitch, and this will be for where we're going to sew the button at the end. Now the reason I mark it with the stitch marker instead is just in case we have to adjust slightly, if the handles don't end up like we have to adjust them or whatever. That way it gives you a chance to adjust it very easily and you don't actually have to like remove it or anything like that. So now we're going to go ahead and slip stitch in the back loop only the rest of the way, all the way around. Alright guys, so once you reach the end of your round, you're actually going to fasten off, and you can slip stitch here to your very first stitch, or I'm going to fasten off, and I'm actually going to use an invisible join just because it makes it a little cleaner. So I'll go ahead and pull through, and I'm going to use my yarn needle to go ahead and create my invisible join here, so that way I don't have to remove the stitch marker. But I will be right back, and I'm going to show you guys how we are going to attach the handle, how we're going to finish up our bottom, and then how we are going to attach the button. So hold tight. Alright guys, so to attach the handle without messing up the brim, what you're going to do is, first off, we're going to place the handle with the stitch marker stitch in the middle. So the handle is going to be 7 stitches total. So there will be 3 stitches to the right and 3 stitches to the left of the indicated stitch. So what we're going to do is this stitch, we're going to work 3 stitches to the right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice here, you can see the slip stitch. What we're going to be working in, and I'm going to use the yarn needle so it's easier to see, is we're going to be working in the back bump of the slip stitch. And that is going to make it a lot more sturdy than just working into the top of the stitches, and it'll make it look a lot better. So the back bump, so if you look at the front, you'll see you'll have the V of the stitch. For the slip stitch, you can kind of see it poking up right there. It's right there, that back bump. So that's where we're going to attach our yarn. I wanted to show you ahead of time because it makes it way more easy than trying to do and show you at the same time, because it's harder to visualize. So we're going to insert your hook, and it may be tricky, especially if they're a little tighter. That's okay. And then you're going to attach your hook. You're going to chain 2, or attach your yarn and chain 2, and then you're going to double crochet 6 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that way you'll have 7 stitches in your handle. So we have 1. Remember that chain 2 does count as a stitch. We're going to double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in those back bumps. So if you need a little help pulling them out a little bit, that's okay. That means they're nice and tight. They'll be nice and sturdy to attach your bag to. And if you get a little more, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Because it's in the back, people aren't going to see it as much. So you'll see how here I got the front loop instead of the back bump. That's okay. You just want to make sure you're getting the back bump and not the front loops. So if you need to, what you can do is actually take a yarn needle and you can separate the back bump for yourself each time. And that may be an easier way for you to identify it too. I will say with the I Love This cotton, it is harder to see the back bump, but I have made this bag with the Fundamental cotton by Yarn Bee, and it is so much easier to see the back bump of the stitch. It just sticks out a little bit more, and so it's a little bit easier to work with. 7. So once you have your 7 double crochets, you're then going to chain 2, you're going to turn, and you're going to work a double crochet into each of the stitches. Now remember that chain 2 counts as the first double crochet, so you're going to work 1 into the next stitch, and then 1 into each of the rest of the stitches across. Just like that. Then you're going to chain 2, and you're going to turn again, and you're going to repeat this row for a total of 56 times, or until it reaches a length that you desire. But I will say you need to end on an even row. You don't want to end on an odd row, because then when you turn, your seam will end up being on the outside, which is not what we want. So just make sure you end on an even number of rows, and then you will be ready to attach. All right, guys, so now that we have our handle complete, we are going to attach it to the other side of our bag. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that there's no twists or turns, and you are going to make sure you end on an even row. Now that it's got no twists and turns, you're going to line it up on the outside of the bag, and we are going to attach it to the back bump of the slip stitch, just like we did when we attached the yarn. So this is going to be easier for you guys to see because it pokes out right there. So right there, that is where we're going to be attaching the other end of the handle. Now what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch across. So before you start, you're going to chain 1. If I can get my yarn to behave, you're going to chain 1, and then that's when we turn, and you're going to start 3 stitches to the right of the stitch marker. So to go ahead and get started, you're going to insert your hook into 1, 2, 3, the back bump right here. I feel like the first one is always the most difficult. And then you're also going to insert your hook through that first stitch, through both loops. And then you're just going to pull through to slip stitch. You're going to do the same thing all the way across for all 7. That was our chain 2, so you'll have to get in the back right there, and 7. And now you can go ahead and fasten off. and pull through your loop just to knot it, and then we'll weave in the ends. And then what we're going to do next is, now we have our handle attached. It's all good. Our handle is all attached, and now we have the bottom of the bag to work on. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it inside out so that the wrong side is facing us. This will allow us to hide the seam of the bag, and we're going to line it up like so. Now, if you're concerned that it'll be super, that you want to make sure that it's all flat, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure your handles are even. So you should see 3 stitches on both handles if it's folded nice and flat. And then for the bottom, what you're going to do is you're going to attach the yarn over in the corner. So I'm going to take my yarn, and you're going to insert your hook through both sides to attach your yarn. Got all looped up. We're going to chain 1, and now we're going to single crochet through both layers all the way across. You will end up with about 30 stitches. If you have like 29 or 31 somewhere in there, that's totally fine. That'll work out just fine. So we're going to go ahead and we can pull that tight. So we're going to single crochet through both sides. So just to show you what it looks like, you can see right there, we get through one side. There's 2 loops because we did foundation double crochet, excuse me, at the bottom. So it will make it really easy. It looks just like when you're going through 2 sides normally. So you don't want to get too tight, but you don't want to be too loose either. So have just pretty consistent tension all the way across. All right, so now that we have our bottom all seamed, we're going to go ahead and fasten off. I'm going to pull through to secure it, and I'm going to go ahead and weave in all my ends, and then I will show you how to attach the button. All right, guys, once your ends are all woven in, you're going to go ahead and flip the bag right side out again. It might take you a second to kind of get those little corners down. And now what you're going to do is, this is where you're going to check to make sure that the button, that the stitch marker is still going to be the proper button placement. So you want to see 3 stitches on both sides for the handles, and right here should be my button placement, which is directly where my button loop is. So that'll be perfect. So it'll be this double crochet stitch where I will attach my button. So if you haven't already, you want to make sure that your button fits in your button loop. So you can attach this with either yarn, which is what I'm going to do, or you can attach it with like a really, really sturdy thread, or even like embroidery thread. You can do that too, whatever works best for you. Personally, I like to use the yarn because it's easier than to weave in the ends, but you can do it however you'd like. And you're gonna just attach it either around this stitch, or you could even attach it right below it, just depending on how far down and how large your button is. So I'm just gonna show you real quick. I'm gonna grab about 10 inches of yarn, and you're going to either thread it on your yarn needle, or like these buttonholes are not large enough for the eye of my yarn needle, so I'm actually just going to thread them through the buttonholes. Now, if you have a thread or buttonholes that are really too small, you can always twist it up really tight and then push it through like this. Another trick you can use is you can actually thread through an actual thread, a loop of thread, put the yarn through the loop of the thread and pull it through your button loop. That can be really helpful, especially if you've got a little bit thicker yarn or stiffer yarn, if it doesn't want to bend very easily. But for today, I am just going to go like this. So now my button is already threaded. And I don't even need to use the yarn needle, because I'm just going to go right around this stitch. You can go ahead and remove that stitch marker. And I'm going to pull it tight. Make sure it's still where I want it. And the nice part about just tying it to this stitch is it can move just enough. So you're going to want to secure it nice and tight. I like to do 3 knots because I'm a little more rough on things. But you can secure it. And then we're going to go ahead and weave in those ends. And just to be sure, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and weave in my ends, and I'll show you the final bag. All right, guys, so we are all done. We have our Iris market bag. You can go ahead and put the button in the loop, or you can leave it unbuttoned. We have our handle, and it is so stinking cute. I absolutely love this texture. And if you ever wanted to adjust the size, you could totally make it longer or make it taller. I have recommendations on how to do that in the written pattern, which is on my Etsy site. So if you would like the written pattern, or if you love this bag and would like to grab one or make an order for one, you can find all of that information in my Etsy shop. The link will be below in the description. And if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear about it. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.